did we leave the fate of our world to chance? You have no choice.
All aboard the Hogwarts Express, because we're about to take you on a journey behind the scenes of all 8 Harry Potter films. The Harry Potter crew loved using as many practical effects as possible. That's why they had actors climbing on real piles of furniture in the room of requirement. And that's why they spent time building life-size models of magical creatures like the Basilisk and Buckbeak. So from flying brooms to breaking wands, let's explore some of the best behind-the-scenes moments. The wand chooses the wizard. Every wizard needs a wand, and at Ollivander's, the wand chooses you, or so we thought. You would think that the crew did some cool CGI tricks to get Harry's wand shopping scene just right, but it was actually done with the help of some smoke and skillful lighting. They brought a fan on set to aim the smoke exactly where they wanted for the magical moment, and it cost them a fraction of what it would have to create the scene digitally. As for the flickering candle that really sets the mood, the team slowed the footage down to 120 frames per second in post-production to make it seem like Harry finding his wand made time move differently. Wizarding chess. Riding on giant chess pieces is probably something that you wanted to try as a kid after seeing the Sorcerer's Stone. But for Rupert Grint, riding a giant chess piece was a pretty scary reality, since that chess piece was meant to blow up. Each piece was actually hand sculpted for the film, and motors were used to make them move around the board. But since there were kids present, they had to be super careful with how they made the piece explode. They decided that compressed air was the safest bet, so when Ron sacrifices himself for his friend and his chess piece explodes, it's actually the compressed air coming out from within, not any crazy CGI tricks. Flying lessons.
The quaffle is released, and the game begins!
We've all spent a moment wondering how Harry Potter pulled off those flying broom scenes, and it looks just about as fun behind the scenes as it does on screen. The cast learned to fly on brooms attached to rigs that would be controlled by the crew, kind of like riding a mechanical bull. When flying in a Quidditch match, actors would sometimes have to get on rigs right beside each other so they could pretend to be flying for the snitch, or avoiding an onslaught of bludgers. Hundreds of titanium brooms ended up being used for the series. We really hope the actors didn't get nauseous up there because that's a lot of flying. Making the house elves. It must be hard to act with someone who isn't really there. That's why the Harry Potter crew decided to make some quick house elves on set.
Hello. Dobby. Harry Potter should have listened to Dobby.
These makeshift house elves were made from sticks and tennis balls, so nothing too sophisticated, but it got the job done. But after they realized they would need house elves way more often, they decided that body doubles would be better. They hired actors who would dress up as the elves and then be replaced later with CGI. It's definitely a step up from the tennis balls. The Basilisk. Sometimes just knowing where to look isn't enough, especially when it comes to something as huge as the Basilisk. A simple stand-in wouldn't live up to this huge snake, so instead, the Harry Potter crew built a full-scale aquamatronic model that also had retractable fangs. That's right, the snake could move in water and bite you. No wonder Daniel Radcliffe looks so convincing as he tries to run away from it. Another completely functional accessory was made for the Basilisk's hangout, the door to the Chamber of Secrets. It was life-size and really open, and we can't even imagine how cool it must have been to walk through those epic doors on set. Hagrid's height. Robbie Coltrane, who played Hagrid, had to have been huge to be casted as a giant, right? Well, not so much. While Coltrane is definitely tall, about 6'1", he's nowhere near giant height. To make him look taller than all of the other cast members, they decided to hire a body double. Martin Bayfield, who towers over Coltrane at 6'10", was chosen for the role. Whenever Hagrid was walking with the kids, it was actually Bayfield's body in the frame. They even made him a realistic mask so that he could stand in for Coltrane anytime Hagrid needed a little extra height. Is it just us, or do you kind of want to rewatch the entire series just to see if you notice the difference?
Hagrid, have you combed your hair?
As a matter of fact, I have.
Building Buckbeak. Okay, so Buckbeak flying to Azkaban with Harry and Hermione is definitely done with some CGI, but the hippogriff isn't as imaginary as you might think. The actors didn't have to play around with tennis balls on sticks for this magical creature. A team of 20 designers spent 4 months perfecting the hippogriff. They hand-painted thousands of feathers from chicken and geese, and then glued them one by one to the animatronic body. The model had moving wings and realistic eyes, and the design team actually ended up making 3 different versions of the mystical creatures. But what do you do with the giant moving hippogriff once the movie wraps? Donate it, of course. The realistic Buckbeak can still be seen at the Harry Potter Studios tour in London. The Whomping Willow. Being attacked by an angry tree doesn't sound like any fun, but filming the Whomping Willow scenes makes it look like a blast. For The Prisoner of Azkaban, the Whomping Willow scene was filmed in front of a green screen with the camera acting as a stand-in for the tree's branches. That's how we got such cool scenes of Hermione and Harry diving and ducking to avoid the tree. The actual branches were added in later with CGI, but we have to give the cast props for looking like they were realistically avoiding getting throttled. And while the cast wasn't harmed in the making of these scenes, the Whomping Willow does have its casualties. For the Chamber of Secrets, 14 Ford Anglias were wrecked to create the scene where Harry and Ron crash into the old tree. The second task. The tasks for the Goblet of Fire weren't just a challenge for the wizards and witches, they also required a lot of hard work and training from the actors. The second task was the hardest one because the crew had to build a tank to film the scene. The tank was surrounded by fluorescent tubes to light the scene from under the water, and the cast members had to learn to hold their breath for long periods of time while still acting. It took 3 weeks of shooting, and Daniel Radcliffe spent over 40 hours underwater. But he did edit an underwater cast photo into an epic Christmas card, so safe to say that he had a pretty good time. Playing Voldemort. The Goblet of Fire was Ralph Fiennes' first Harry Potter film as Voldemort, and it's easy to imagine that he was covered in prosthetics for most of it. But in reality, Fiennes didn't need a whole lot on his face to look like Voldemort. A few marks were made for tracking, and then they used CGI to add Voldemort's nose to his face in post-production. The crew thought it would be quicker to do it this way, since spending time in a makeup chair to get prosthetics done can take hours. We're not really sure what we thought Voldemort had on under his robes, but this definitely wasn't it.
From this day forth, you put your faith in me.
Flying THESTRALS. The cast definitely spent a lot of time up in the air while filming. To ride the mysterious THESTRALS, the actors would hop on a rig that was the exact size and shape of a THESTRAL's midsection. Then, when they were interacting with the THESTRALS on the ground, a member of the crew would hold up a realistic THESTRAL head on a stick so that the actors would know exactly where to look and touch. The biggest challenge came in post-production when the VFX artist had to somehow give the THESTRAL's all-black body some depth so it wouldn't fall flat on screen. Hall of Prophecies. The most intense scene in Order of the Phoenix takes place in the Hall of Prophecies, a seemingly limitless room with way too many shelves. The action was filmed on a green screen and then the maze of shelves was added in later, but the light coming from their wands was 100% real. The cast actually had battery packs attached to the wands hidden underneath their clothes. But practical effects aren't always the most comfortable. Daniel Radcliffe said that these battery packs were heavy and made using the Lumos spell a real pain. Walking residential. How would you feel if your house or neighborhood ended up being featured in a Harry Potter movie? Probably pretty cool. Which is why the residents of Laycock, Wiltshire in England were fine with the Half-Blood Prince filming on their street. When Dumbledore and Harry set off to find Professor Slughorn, they walked through this small residential neighborhood. They filmed the scene between 5 p.m. and 5 a.m. and had to ask residents to completely block out their windows, both so they wouldn't see the scene and also so the set lighting wouldn't keep them awake at night. But most people probably weren't able to sleep anyway, knowing Harry Potter was exploring their neighborhood. The Cave. When Dumbledore and Harry go to the cave to find and destroy the locket, the actors had to climb and act on realistic rock formations. Some were props and some were real, but they were all placed to look like dangerous, jagged rock formations so that the cast could convincingly interact with their surroundings.
You remember the conditions on which I brought you with me? This potion might paralyze me.
The cave looks pretty small on set because they digitally expanded the scene in post-production to make it look huge. The entire background of the cave and the creepy things living in the water were added in later with CGI. GRINGOTTS heist. It can't be easy to do goblet makeup on tons of different actors, but for the Gringotts heist scene in the Deathly Hallows Part 1, the makeup team had to get ready to make over a whole bunch of goblins. It took 8 months of preparation to get the makeup and the practical effects just right, but the Goblin VIP award goes to Warwick Davis. Davis spent hours in makeup every day he was on set, and the makeup artist spent even more time making sure Davis's many characters didn't all look exactly the same. The Wand Breaker. Ron Weasley isn't the only wizard with a habit of breaking wands. Throughout the entire Harry Potter series, Daniel Radcliffe was responsible for breaking about 80 wands, but how did he accidentally break so many props? While he loved using the wands as drumsticks, which definitely could have been part of it, he also really liked poking his other castmates with them, which probably explains why so many broke in half. But considering he's the star of the franchise, we're sure the prop department didn't mind making him a few extras. Harry's fate. Most people know that Alan Rickman was told how Snape's story would end early by J.K. Rowling, but so was Daniel Radcliffe. Rowling told him before the last book was published that Harry would lose his life in one particular scene in the final movie, so Daniel Radcliffe knew before we did that Harry would have an epic resurrection. Not that we're surprised Rowling would tell him before us. The author and the star have a pretty good friendship that they've kept going over the years. The Room of Requirement. The Room of Requirement is one of the most complex sets in the Harry Potter films. It became even more complex in The Deathly Hallows Part 2, when the cast had to climb mountains of furniture as the crew literally set fire to the stage. The set was built with hundreds of actual props fitted to scaffolding and tied to supports so that the actors could climb the set with harnesses. The major flames were added in later with CGI, but the crew used torches to light small fires all over the set to make the action look more realistic. Voldemort's speech. Ralph Fiennes isn't just good at pulling off Voldemort's signature robes, he also has a way with words, which is why his speech at the end of The Deathly Hallows Part 2 was partially improvised and a little bit different every time he gave it.
From this day forth, you put your faith in me.
The director wanted the speech to feel authentic, so he let Fiennes have some fun with it. This was also the first time Voldemort was meeting Neville, and it was the first time Fiennes was acting with Matthew Lewis, even though they'd already technically starred in 5 Harry Potter films together. Rupert's strange gifts. Saying goodbye isn't easy, and it's even harder when you've worked on 8 films together through your childhood. But to lighten the mood, Rupert Grint decided to give his on-screen besties some unique presents. He gave both Emma and Daniel trumpets as parting gifts, and no, neither actor played the instrument. Rupert and Emma also worked together to bring Rupert's ice cream truck to set on the last day of filming, so that the entire cast could have a sweet treat before saying goodbye. Which behind-the-scenes secret surprised you most? Do these on-set moments ruin the magic for you, or do they just make it that much more impressive? Let us know what you think in the comments. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to The Things for more. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.